You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those birds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got some family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the Modcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young.
God, I love being a turtle!
The Turtle Dork.
I'm a fucking ninja.
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson.
Quick, suck it before the venom reaches my heart.
Wife Dork.
Someday, when I've forgotten the lyrics. Da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, I will feel a glow just thinking of you, just the way you look tonight. Fucked up the words. That's okay. Keeping it!
All right. And Brad Gullickson.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
Mouth Dork.
Oh, thank you very much for your cosmic views. Now do me a favor. Shut up!
And I'm your host, Darren Smith.
Warm. Warmer. Disco.
The Disco Dork. Stem. He's got a knife. I see that. We have a knife too. And welcome to the Modcast podcast. Yay!
Yay!
I wish I had a stem. Because I think that's the only way I'd ever accomplish actually working out, is if
a robot did it for you.
Make me like, and I would have the robot just put me to sleep, replay Great British Bake Off in my brain.
Oh, you want to take the back seat immediately?
Oh yeah, no, I would give up to the robot.
Okay.
Immediately, yeah.
Well, let's save that conversation for the review cast.
Oh, sure, sounds good.
All right, welcome back, dorks.
Yay!
Well, actually, I'm talking to me and Brian because we weren't here last week.
Yeah, welcome back, guys. Hello.
And now we're in the cyber dork cave. We're having our convo via Skype.
Via Skype, yes, ladies and gentlemen. So please excuse the what are those signs like they? Oh, please excuse the mess, so to speak.
Pardon our mess, our digital mess.
Yeah, we are.
And Brian, he's recording Skype via canoe. He's washing down the Potomac right now.
Yeah, I got my mobile. Got my mobile system with me.
Just crazy weather we've been having. But I'm glad to be recording again. Let's do so before we get into our weeks in Dork, ladies and gentlemen, if you will, if you have not already, and even if you have, please do not forget to leave us a review and a rating on iTunes, if you please.
5 stars. 5 stars. Thank you. 5.
Yeah.
And we gained a lot of followers this week on Facebook and Twitter.
Yay!
So thank you for joining us, newbies. And now that you've joined the Dork Army, please leave a review. And also you're trapped.
Yes. What Brad said, please leave a review. It helps us. Something about algorithms, and it makes us more visible when we get reviews, and it makes our ItMod family bigger ultimately, and it just helps us have more cool stuff coming towards you. So
and it makes us feel good. We need compliments. We're like those classroom experiments where you one flower you whisper compliments and the other flower you ignore, and then which flower is more beautiful? The compliments flower.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's a thing.
I don't know what you said.
All right, Brian. So, how was your weeks at Dork?
Well, I guess me. I don't really get out much to watch a lot, so I gotta stay in and watch what I can.
Hermit Dork.
Pretty much. But probably just gonna talk about a little TV that I watched. I actually caught up with from a couple of weeks ago that I talked about. Some of my Netflix watching and some other series that I've finished. So I ended up finishing The Punisher, which I actually really enjoyed. I do remember back when it did premiere last year. I know you, Darren, and Brad didn't really have a lot of high things to say about it. So I kind of went in, I kind of went in a little trepidatious about it going in. And to be honest, I really enjoyed it.
So you're like, Brad, Darren, you're stupid.
No.
Brian, say what you tell them what you told me the other day.
Basically, I told you I need to watch stuff for myself. I mean, I respect you guys' opinions a lot, but I was like, you know what? As much as I do, I need to really experience things myself because
we're different people.
Exactly. Everybody's different, so we're all going to come to certain things and experience things extremely differently, which is the great thing about it. But
Darren and I have decided we will allow you to have your own opinion, Brian.
Thank you.
Lisa, we're not sure about you yet.
Dumb lady opinions.
But no, I did enjoy that series and looking forward to season 2. I started Jessica Jones, and actually I'm about halfway through Jessica Jones. Before we recorded, I just finished episode 7, and I've kind of been half watching it up until this point. I haven't really been kind of engaged into it as much, but I actually really got. We see a lot with these Netflix series that they usually make a shift in the halfway point. And spoiler alert, because I know this has been out, and hopefully a lot of our listeners, if you've seen it, if you haven't seen it, you probably don't care, or if you have seen it, then you already know what I'm about to say. But it's halfway through the series, we get introduced, because I think we've been focused more so on the investigation into IGH, like how Jessica Jones became who she is now. And we're getting a little bit more into the backstory. And I'm at the point now where we get introduced to her mother, realizing that her mother is still alive. And I just finished the episode that deals with the backstory of her mother and Jessica Jones when she was back in college. And I thought that was a pretty interesting twist, and it really did kind of get me a little bit more interested in the show, because up until that point I was just kind of meandering through watching the show, but it kind of got me a little bit more engaged getting into this halfway point. I do kind of agree with what Darren said about a month or so ago when he talked about Jessica Jones, as far as like a lot of the peripheral characters, dealing with Jerry, Carrie Ann Moss's character, and dealing with Trish and Malcolm. I think they're doing a really good job of really fleshing those characters out and giving those characters a lot to do in the background.
Malcolm is so good this season, ain't he?
Yeah, he's really good. I mean, there are some story points that, because at this point they're trying to develop a relationship between Trish and Malcolm. I don't know, like, it seems like
stick with it.
Okay. But yeah, I'm getting a little bit more into it as I go into the second half of that series. So we'll see how the rest of Jessica Jones turns out. But again, like I was saying, I like taking my time and not really binging these shows, or just watching them as, my availability allows me to watch it. Because this weekend I've actually been kind of watching a lot more of Jessica Jones, just trying to get through, because there's a lot of series on Netflix that I kind of want to get to.
It's so interesting how when we first became like obsessed with Netflix and, Amazon Prime and stuff like that, or in particular, Marvel Netflix with Daredevil, how we were just like, well, we've got to watch everything in this weekend. Yeah. And I've really fallen away from that.
I think that it's a direct result of the quality of some of these shows, though, because when you dig into them and they're not what you expect, and the pacing is not, like, it's hard to drag your ass through a season of television that is not up to.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly true. From my point of view, the Marvel films have not, or the Marvel Netflix shows have not really thrilled me. So I've fallen away from them. But I am going to watch at least the first few episodes of The Punisher season 2, just like I did with Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I didn't keep going with Jessica Jones. How does it feel, Brian, compared to the first season? Do you like it as much or more?
It's weird because, if you've seen the first couple of episodes, then you know they brought back that character Simpson from from season 1. And to be honest with you, man, season 1 for me was actually kind of forgettable. So because I remember the character of Simpson, but I didn't know exactly what happened to him. Who is Simpson?
Which one is he?
He was the guy that was dating Trish in the first episode. He went kind of crazy when he started taking those. That's the only thing I remember. And then they brought him back for like one episode, and then he got killed off. But to be honest with you, and the fact that I haven't really been that into this season up until this point, I gotta say that I'm actually kind of liking season 2 a little bit better. Only because of where I'm at now, and I'm really starting to get engaged with this storyline that they're going into with IGH, and then reconnecting her with her mother, and just seeing where that goes, and then also, like Darren was saying, with the secondary characters and seeing what's happening with them as well. I'm digging probably season 2 a little bit more.
Nice.
But before I finish up, just to kind of, I know I'm supposed to just kind of highlight one thing, but I finished season 2 of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And it was I had about 4 episodes to go. And the episode I started with, which I talked to Darren about, was Woods. And that's an episode that deals focusing more so on Alfred, on Paperboy. And it's kind of ironic how I got to watch these last 4 episodes, in succession to each other, because those last 4 episodes almost feel like it could be like its own story arc. And we've talked about before how season 2 was a little bit heavier and a little bit more dense than season 1. And these last 4 episodes kind of epitomizes that and really gets you a little bit more into the backstory of all 3 of these characters, and their history, and almost kind of foreshadowing of where their lives are going to go in the future. And these 4 episodes were really heavy, but they seem to have a really kind of specific story arc that I think kind of fit well together. It was just a phenomenal season. It's definitely a season because of how dense it is. I think, at least for me, there's certain episodes that I feel like I need to rewatch, because I don't want to say I didn't get it, and I don't even know if it's a show that I feel like there's certain things that you have to get. But I think that there's a lot more that the creators of that show are trying to say with some of these episodes, and I definitely want to go back and kind of rewatch a lot of the stuff, because it's brilliantly done, and I highly recommend a lot of people definitely check this show out if you haven't watched Atlanta. But yeah, that was the show that I finished, and definitely wanted to mention that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing, is just watching TV, catching up on TV, and enjoying a lot of stuff I've been watching.
Nice. Brian, you're not a Westworld person, are you?
No, I'm gonna try to watch it. I've heard some up and down things of season 2. I know season 1 is supposed to be phenomenal for what I've been hearing, but I'll get into it at some point.
Okay, because I want to talk Westworld, but not as my weekend dork. I want to talk about other stuff as my weekend dork.
All right. Well, just so happens that it's your turn, wife dork.
What?
How was your weekend dork?
My weekend dork was wonderful, as per usual, dorking it up. But as you know, Brad and I have started trying to climb that hill of watching all of the AFI Top 100. Uh-oh. But this time we have the help of Paul Scheer and Amy Nicholson and their podcast Unspooled. So if you're just tuning in, they are doing a podcast where they're watching each of these AFI Top 100 and doing their little take on it. And Paul Scheer has done an amazing job of doing like this deep dive into the history of each film. And of course, they talk about what happens in the film, and they're super entertaining, and they always manage to bring like another element to the watch You know what I mean? So it's nice. It's nice to have this kind of motivating factor in watching all of these classic films. So we're 4 deep. So their first episode was Citizen Kane. The second episode was Ben-Hur. So Citizen Kane is number 1 on the AFI. Ben-Hur, their second episode was Ben-Hur, which is number 100. And then for all of the inside episodes, Amy Nicholson has like an 100-sided die, and she just rolls the 100-sided die. So the inside films are all going to be kind of, they're going to be jumping around, which I think is a good and fun idea. So the next episode was Wizard of Oz. So, of course, with Brad and my schedule, it's always catch as catch can. So a lot of times we're watching these movies super late. So it's been a lot of wife dork naps through the classics. And I've slept through Citizen Kane, Ben-Hur, and Wizard of Oz.
Oh.
But I managed to sleep, to stay awake for an entire film. And that is the number 90 on the AFI Top 100, Swing Time. So Swing Time is a musical comedy starring Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. And even though I'm a bit of a musical dork, I've actually never seen a Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers film before. So I was super curious. So just to understand like the status of where Swing Time is on the AFA Type 100, it is number 90. So it's in between. The Sixth Sense is number 89, and then number 91 is Sophie's Choice.
That's a weird collection of movies.
I know. So it goes Sixth Sense, Swing Time, Sophie's Choice, then then it's Goodfellas, The French Connection, Pulp Fiction, Last Picture Show. So all Swing Time beat out all of these films. Do the Right Thing. It's better than Blade Runner. It's better than Yankee Doodle Dandy. Oh. I second that, actually. It's better than Toy Story. Toy Story is number 99. So according to the 1,500 people, film historians and who got to vote for this thing, it is number 90. So it's about Fred Astaire plays this dancer named Lucky, who the film opens with him quitting his life as a dancer so he can go off and get married to Margaret, who is not Ginger Rogers. So we know it is not going to work out. Oh. So he's coming off the stage and he's telling all of his friends goodbye, and they're all bitter because he's the star of the show, and when he leaves, their careers are over. So they trick him into missing his wedding, but by a hilarious cuffs gag. One main theme you will hear in my watching a movie that is this old is sometimes like watching a movie like a foreign film where you're like, I know these are jokes, but I don't know why they're funny. Yeah. But they play an elaborate cuffs gag that makes him late for his wedding. And so when he gets there, Margaret's dad is pissed, and he's like, I knew you were no good. And he's like, I have all of this potential. I have this amazing business plan. And Lucky gives his word that once he makes $30,000, then he will come back for Margaret's hand. And for some reason, the dad is like, sure, that sounds great. But Lucky's business plan happens to be gambling. Yeah. He is a gifted gambler. So he and his friend Pop, who is an older magician who I'm sure he's got to have some kind of traumatic brain injury, or he's slow. And that's his whole character, is that he is slow, which I guess is hilarious. But I don't know. It was very, as a character, very bizarre and very awkward. He's the kind of bumbling where he's putting all of these roadblocks in Fred Astaire's slick ways. But he loves him anyway because he's his friend Pop. So he and Pop go to the big city where Lucky runs into Penny, who is Ginger Rogers. And Penny is a dance instructor, and they start dancing together, and they start to fall in love. And Lucky, with the help of his lucky coin, and now his girl Penny. Oh, I'd never made that connection that they were both coin names, things, coin related. All of his coin luck, he started really gaining some success, but he starts becoming concerned that he's going to be too successful. He's going to make $30,000, and he's going to have to go back and marry Margaret. So that is the plot. So he's trying to be successful and woo Penny, all the while trying not to be too successful so that he doesn't have to marry Margaret. That's the whole thing. It's an extremely silly musical plot. And there's dancing, and the dancing is absolutely wonderful. So like when you're watching these films that are on the AFI Top 100, you really start going like, what is it about this film that makes it worthy of this list? And in terms of, like, for me, with Swing Time, I know Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers were like this enormous thing, and they're these musical icons. And the dancing in this, there are 4 or 5 dance numbers that are amazing. The music is absolutely wonderful. It's by Jerome Kern and Dorothy Fields. It has The Way You Look Tonight, that song, which is it's a standard, an American standard at this point. Absolutely wonderful song. But outside of the dancing, the movie, the characters are insufferable. Like they're like everything is so cloying, so sweet. The plot in terms of like musical plot is not extraordinary. So Brad and I were watching this kind of like, like beating our brains going like, why is this the musical they decided? There are several musicals on the AFI Top 100, but why is this one of the ones that makes the cut? Towards the climax, so we're watching this film and making jokes all the way through. Brad's like giving me the eyebrows, like, do you really want to bring this up? But I do. So towards the climax of the movie, Margaret finally comes to see Lucky in his new act. And of course, she knows nothing about Penny or what their relationship is. And Penny and Lucky have just had their first kiss. They weirdly don't kiss on screen. I don't know if that's like a 30s thing or if that's like a Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers thing, because they were not like a real life item. They were like, just like an on-screen couple. But so they have their first kiss. And then Margaret shows up, and Lucky starts freaking out that, Margaret's going to see Penny, and Penny's going to be mad, and he's going to lose both girls, and, whatever. So, like, there's all this, like, tension. And there's this one point where Margaret is in his dressing room, and they're trying to have a conversation, and then the door opens, and we're like, oh, no, is it Penny? But it's not Penny. It's these goons that he and Lucky had kind of rooked out in like a gambling deal. And so, and Fred Astaire, being Fred Astaire, kind of slick talks his way out of the situation. But it's like this like funny little coincidence, like, like, oh, that was thrilling. A little brush with whatever. And then he sits down at his makeup mirror and he slaps his 2 hands together and he starts rubbing some makeup into his hands. And I just go, oh my God, no, he's doing blackface. And so he starts smearing the stuff on his face. And then there's like what feels like a 20-minute Bojangles dance number that is so tremendously awkward and horrible. And I realized, though, like, doing my little, like, wiki research, like, this dance number was, like, a tremendous accomplishment. They were using, like, these, for that time, advanced projection and layering techniques. So they had, like, they shot the dance multiple times, creating these huge silhouettes in the background. And then they layered all of the shots together, and it creates this kind of like, it's black and white, but it creates like this kind of like layered Technicolor texture-y effect. And then, and also the dancing is amazing. There's all of these dancing girls, and they do this amazing synchronized thing, and they're going all of the directions, and but all of that spectacularness just and highlights how utterly offensive this is. And you know, the style of dancing he's doing is like this exaggerated style that was very, you know, typical of, you know, what's the word I'm thinking of? Vaudeville and all of that stuff, and just very exaggerated. And to me, like, it just, especially, and I know that you're supposed to look at like classic films with, you know, like, well, it's of the time, you know, and a lot of these musicals have numbers like that, you know, White Christmas and Yankee Doodle Dandy, which is also on the AFI Top 100. But to me, I don't know, like,
what does it mean to be on the AFI Top 100?
Exactly. That's because, like, the way that they title the AFI Top 100 is Greatest American Movies. And to me, like, if you're making a list of the greatest American movies, you have to put it in the context of, like, to us today, you know? Because I know that I'm looking at this with the perspective of a modern person, and maybe the reason Swing Time feels like every other musical is because every other musical is based on Swing Time. But to me, like, I'm sure that there are other movies.
Well, this is what, the 6 of 10 partnerships between Astaire and Rogers.
Yeah, and it's
often cited as the best one, but I would argue, even despite the blackface dance number, the characters are dumb.
Yeah.
The dialogue is atrocious. Stupid. And it's a cloying, irritating movie. Yes, the dance numbers are great. But I don't know, like, you compare this to something like Singing in the Rain, and you know,
which is also on the AFI Top 100.
That was made, you know, 20 years after Swing Time. So it's built off of the shoulders of this movie. But I think that film hits all the same beats plus amazing dance numbers in a far superior fashion. And I don't understand why this movie would be included in the top 100. But I could say that also about the film right after it. Does, you know, Sixth Sense. What's that doing on there?
To me, I think that, like, lists like the AFI Top 100, like, we should be cycling through films all of the time, because every time the times change and our perspective changes, this list should be shuffling a bit.
And what's interesting about this, though, is this list, it was last revised in 2007,
right,
and Swing Time was not on it before 2007.
The Jazz Singer was in its place, and the Jazz Singer, I think, wasn't that the first talkie or something like that? So like, in terms of, and now the Jazz Singer is no longer on this list.
I mean, I looking at the list, it looks like they are selecting films that are, one, good, quote unquote, but also historically significant.
Right.
You know.
But then, I mean, they should call it the AFI's Top 100 Most Significant Films, not the greatest films. Because, like, no matter how you slice it, like, to me, Swing Time is not a great film. It's not even a great musical.
But we are in the minority of film fans. Film fans, if you go online, love this movie. And when they talk about the Bojangles sequence, they talk about it in the context of, like, oh, it was a different time then. Yeah, but why are we celebrating it?
Yeah, no, that's my thought exactly. To me, I just feel like I'm excited about watching all of these AFI Top 100 films, and I'm glad to now have an opinion on Swing Time, I suppose. But man, it's not made me more curious about Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. I can tell you that.
I'm certainly excited for the Unspooled episode.
Oh yeah, so that should be right around the corner.
It drops on Thursday.
So Soup's excited about that. So, well, I'll see if they were equally horrified. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, that was my week in Dork.
All right. Thank you for that. Mouth Dork.
Yes, sir.
Week in Dork.
It was always, as always, great.
Yeah.
Killing it every week in Dork. I wanted to focus on comic books once again. There two significant releases occurred this past Wednesday. One, Amazing Spider-Man reached issue 800.
Damn.
Huzzah.
And it's the winding down of Dan Slott's epic run on the character. He's been writing Spider-Man for, seems like at least the last 5, maybe 10 years.
Oh.
And I've come in and out of that run since he's taken over. He worked on it with Spider Island. He did the whole Superior Spider-Man, Dr. Octopus is inside Spidey's brain storyline. He had some fun with the clone conspiracy. And he decided to go out on a really wacky, very comic booky storyline called Go Down Swinging, involving the return of Norman Osborn as a major threat in Peter Parker's life. In particular, the way this story starts out is, and I don't know the whole history of what's been going on for like the last several years with Norman Osborn, but apparently Spider-Man had something to do with robotic nanites inside Norman's body that forced him not to accept the Goblin serum, so he couldn't turn into a superhuman like he was once before. However, using his wealth and his nefarious set of goons that serve him, he broke into a secure vault that was holding the Carnage symbiote. And he fuses himself with the Carnage symbiote, becoming not the Green Goblin, but the Red Goblin. And it's very wacky, very, like, it's just so... People who don't like comic books would look at this and go, like, this is just dumb. But it's dumb in the best way. So Norman becomes the Red Goblin. He goes after Spider-Man. He says, look, if you put this suit on, I'm going to kill everyone you love, Mary Jane, Aunt May, Flash Thompson, all your friends. So, yeah, burn your costume. And he does that for a little while because he's got to buy some time. But eventually when the Red Goblin kicks the Human Torch's ass and Miles Morales' ass and Silk's ass and Agent Anti-Venom, don't even get me started on that character, Spider-Man has to, put the suit back on and go to work. And during the battle, J. Jonah Jameson, who's now a friend of Spider-Man, I don't know how that happened, he calls Eddie Brock and says, look, you need to help out Spidey because you're the only one who has any kind of relationship with this symbiote, and he's going to get his ass kicked unless you help. So Venom comes, he partners up with Spider-Man, but the Red Goblin kicks Venom's ass, and Venom's like, look, bro, you need to take the symbiote back, Spider-Man, because you're Spider-Man. I'm just a normal dude with a symbiote, but if Spider-Man has the symbiote, you'll be even stronger, and you're the only guy who can take on the Red Goblin with my symbiote.
That's tremendous logic, actually.
So Spider-Man and the alien symbiote fuse once again. He's back in black, and he goes up against the Red Goblin in Times Square. There's a brief moment where Dr. Octopus helps out because he still has Peter Parker's memories and feelings towards Aunt May circling his mind. So when the Red Goblin goes after Aunt May, Dr. Octopus defends Aunt May because he loves Aunt May too now. And it's a really silly, enjoyable battle royale comic book. J. Jonah Jameson, he gets what are they called? The Spider Slayer robots. He puts the little mind meld helmet on, and he sends a robot army after Red Goblin. It's just nuts. And I don't want to spoil the ending of that battle. Spider-Man wins. Okay. Norman Osborn does not succeed on the 800th issue of The Amazing Spider-Man. That's a big shock. But, it's a lot of fun. And I think the appeal of Dan Slott to me, having read this and, his run on Silver Surfer, his stuff with She-Hulk and The Thing, that's a guy who embraces the absurdity of comic books. Sometimes, 20th Century Fox, they take the X-Men and they make them serious business. And that sort of betrays the nature of the origin of these characters. And in tackling, Venom and Red Goblin and, the Goblin King and, Clash and Silk and the Agent Anti-Venom, and just having fun with it, it's a thrill to read. And I'm sure Spider-Man will go through a dark, realistic phase someday. But this is where I like my character. I like him going up against absurd odds, against absurd creatures, and having a quip in his back pocket for every punch.
Yeah, that's what I like about Dan Slott, too. The fact that he is funny, he can move a plot forward, but also he has an encyclopedic knowledge of these characters, and so he can write with a deftness and a fluency with weaving all of these different crazy stories and characters and elements together. It's kind of a magic trick to watch him do it.
Yeah, and I had not been reading the Red Goblin storyline, so I went back and I bought all the way back to issue 794, where Osborn and Carnage fused together. And I just read these, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could have just subtracted 800, I guess. But these 7 issues.
We're not here to do math.
Spider-Man. And I read them all this afternoon, and I just had a total blast with it. And they all have these gorgeous Alex Ross covers. I would highly recommend it. You don't, like I said, I didn't know all the ins and outs of what Slott had been doing leading up to this storyline, but I caught up fairly quickly. Apparently, Peter Parker was dating Mockingbird. What? Don't worry, they break up.
Good.
You say good?
Yeah, good. Spider-Man
and Mary Jane forever.
Well, they share a kiss again in this issue.
Is it behind a door like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers?
No, it's not behind a door. You get to see it. It's a splash page.
Ooh, I'm telling you, it's splash page.
And the last batch of issues are all illustrated by Stuart Immonen, and I love his design of the Red Goblin. He has the silhouette of Green Goblin, and the coloring of Carnage, and he's got like the Carnage mouth and Carnage ears, and he's got this crazy tail. I love this tail. Ooh.
He whip it around.
He whips it. Yeah, he whips it back and forth. Okay, and the other comic that came out this week that's of significance is the first issue of The Man of Steel. Brian Michael Bendis is on Superman for the first time. He's come to DC Comics, and he's here to leave his mark on the Blue Boy Scout. And I'm super curious. Bendis has a very particular talky style, and I've associated it for so long with characters like Spider-Man and Iron Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, as well as all new X-Men and the Avengers. I mean, he's a guy who just loves to take time with characters speaking at you. And that's something that DC really doesn't specialize in. So here we are. He's on The Man of Steel. They're setting up some evil bad guy I'm not so sure about right now. It's tied to Krypton's past. He's called Rogal Zar. And he's a big, beefy, doomsday-looking fellow. He's got a giant axe. I'm not sure, he wants to cleanse the universe of Kryptonians for some reason. I guess we'll find out about that later. But the majority of the issue involves Superman saving some Metropolis citizens from a fire in a skyscraper, and it's Superman meeting the new fire chief, Melody Moore, and her just being in awe of this being. And I really liked it. It's only 22 pages. It's hard to say, where this story is going. but it felt like Clark Kent. It felt like Superman. I respect Bendis's point of view of the character in the sense of, this being of awesomeness trapped inside a, middle America golly gee personality. And yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I don't love it, but I'm excited to read the next issue. And the next issue is coming quickly. The Man of Steel series is only going to be a limited run. It's going to last, I think it's 5 issues, maybe 6, and it's coming out on a weekly basis. So you better jump on board now. And then Bendis will be jumping onto the monthly Superman title.
Nice.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my weekend dork.
Alrighty. For my weekend dork, I do want to say, firstly, I listened to your review cast for Solo. That shit was pretty funny. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Yay.
And I also saw Solo, and I thought it was just okay. I had my issues with it. I'm not going to go into it too much. But ultimately, for me, it'll probably end up one of the forgettable Star Wars films.
But luckily, we'll have so many Star Wars films to forget.
Yeah, so
beautiful future.
Yeah, so it's not the end of the world, but it is what it is. I went up to the Alamo Draft House in Winchester on Saturday.
What?
Faye, she was on a little vacation or excursion, so she couldn't host the Psycho Cinema screening of the Shaw Brothers movie Buddha's Palm from 1982. Brad, I can't remember if you.
Yeah,
we both saw it.
Weekend Dork. Yeah, but did you talk about it in your Weekend Dork?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Faye. Thank you for having me up there, and thank you to the staff of the Alamo Draft House in Winchester. Everyone is always so kind to me, and and everyone who came out, all of the people in Faye's Film Club from Psycho Cinema, everyone who came out. It's funny because like the day before, if you looked on the Alamo website for ticket purchase, it was only like 4 people who had bought a ticket, and I was like, damn. Well, those 4 people, us 5 people, including me in the theater, we're gonna have a blast. Because this movie is nuts. And
Winchester doesn't really do a lot of advanced ticket sales. A lot of the folks out there just buy on the day.
Yeah, and so when I got there, there was like at least like 15 people had showed up, and I did the intro, and that went well. I probably was nervously rambling or something, but everyone was kind, so it was cool, no big deal. So then we started watching the movie. Man, I haven't seen this movie since 87 maybe, or 85, 87. Like I haven't seen this movie since the 80s. But there was this thing that stuck with me about the movie, just how bizarre it was, because even in the context of like just other Shaw Brothers, kung fu films, like there are none that are like this movie. So and that always stuck with me. So it was almost like watching it for the first time yesterday. Man, that movie is so freaking crazy. I don't even know what it's about. Really, I honestly don't know like what that movie is about. There's this dude, this Buddhist guy who has the skill of Buddha's palm. He dies. His student is passed this knowledge. This student wants to create another student to pass this knowledge on. This new student he's in love with this royal lady that is about to get married to someone else. So he leaves, and then like there's all these other crazy, weird, like mythical characters, and from this Chinese, because it's based off of a Chinese comic book. So seeing it this time recently in this state of movies and comic book movies and adaptations, it was obvious to me that this was something that was being adapted from a rich source material, because it's too much and they don't have enough time to go into and elaborate on any of it, and so you're just throwing like all these things at the screen and all these characters from all these places with all these histories, and you're like, what the hell is going on? And they come and go, and none of it seems like it's amounting to anything, except that I guess this guy's going on this journey. There's this freaking dragon. This is like flying dragon.
Yeah, it's like his friends.
Yeah, and I tell you, so one can easily look at that and scoff at that dragon, because admittedly it does look goofy, right? But
I think it looks sweet.
But here's the thing: like when you watch that, and versus a CGI dragon, even something as high quality as Smaug from the Hobbit films. If you look at Smaug, and then you look at this dragon in Buddha's palm, and tell me you have the same reaction. You do not have. It's just for me. There's a gleefulness in seeing this physical thing, because you start to go, man, how did they do that? And then you're thinking about how the two men are in there working in tandem, and how they actually built it, and with all the material. There's this huge tangible object in scene, in camera, that the actor can act opposite, and the audience can connect with. And it was funny because it's always cool when you see a movie, someone come around to a movie, a movie turn someone, a viewer. So that the audience initially, there's this character played by Leigh, which is one of the great kung fu actors in Hong Kong cinema. He's a Pai Mei in Fist of the White Lotus. He's in like a crap ton of those movies. So anyway, like, I'm trying to think of his name, Pai Gu. Every time he would enter somewhere, he would announce himself, Pai Gu Yong Shao, and he would just like keep shouting that when he enters somewhere. So the first time that happens, like, the audience is like, they're thrown off by like, what? And you can hear him laughing at that, right? So the second time, so he comes in, he's established in his weird way, and then he leaves. So like another 10 minutes, 20 minutes happen, and then Bye go yo shot, and then the guy comes back, and then you hear the audience go, oh god, this guy again. And so the movie keeps happening. There's all this other crazy shit that the audience is just getting floored with. And then the next time you hear "bye go," then the audience claps. They're like, "Yeah!" So like this guy. So now whenever he's on screen, the audience is loving this guy, and like it was so cool to just watch the movie win them over like that, because you got this, you got a golden lightsaber dagger in the movie. You got the freaking flying dragon. You got a
acid pus.
Acidic pus filled cis duo who sits on the shoulder of this other guy. Like this movie is nuts. And then not to mention, here's the coolest thing that happened, right? So there's the main bad guy. His name is Heavenly Foot, but it's subtitled in the movie. They call him Monster Foot, and so his power is his leg can extend like 30, 40, maybe 50 feet, like Mr. Fantastic, and it can be retracted, and then it can even grow to like a giant size as it extends, right? So he's like the main bad guy. So he comes up on the screen. I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, man, this dude looks familiar. Like, I've seen him somewhere before. And every time he comes on screen, like, I'm seeing his face. I'm like, who is this guy? And there was a moment in the third act, like it was at the end. He made this face, and it clicked. I was like, oh my goodness, that's Shi Xian. That's Mr. Han from Enter the Dragon.
What?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes. And I was like, oh shit, that's Mr. Han from Enter the Dragon. And so that just blew my mind and just put a big smile on my face. And like the audience is, and like the end, it just gets really nuts. He's standing up on top of this thing. His foot has come down, extended. It's gotten big. everyone's standing around him, like projecting these really like poor cartoony graphics, like shooting their laser powers at him, and it's just so silly. And then the movie ends in the way that all the classic kung fu movies, they need to just everyone's facing the camera and either smiling or someone's falling back, and it's a freeze frame. And the movie ends, and the whole cast is sitting there smiling. And like when your movie ends on that note, you can't help but have a good time with a movie like that. I mean, that movie's purpose was just to entertain, and it was like just throw everything at the screen, all for the sole purpose of entertainment. And man, the audience loved it. They loved it. They were like, I don't know what that was, but that was great.
That's one of the beautiful things about Psycho Cinema as like a community, because you really do get the sense that they've waded themselves into the weirdest, darkest, creepiest, craziest corners of cinema, and they high five each other over like loving these kooky, crazy films. Is beautiful.
And the difference between Psycho Cinema and Film School and Film Club compared to the Alamo Ashburn Film Club is that these guys have been together for a long time,
forever.
And so they all know how to watch a movie together. Right. So there's a different vibe and there's a different reaction to something like The Buddha's Palm than when we go and see it at the Alamo Ashburn. Not to like put down the Alamo Ashburn, but it's a newer creature.
But it makes you excited because we're going to get there. Like in comparison to Psycho Cinema and Film Club 3.0, Film Club Ashburn is just a baby. Yeah. We're just a baby film club, and we're going to grow.
Buddha's Palm at the Alamo Ashburn was a fun watch.
Absolutely.
We had a blast, but I'm jealous a little bit. One, because Psycho Cinema got a Disco Dork introduction.
Yeah.
And two, like that crowd is like in it to win it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's just a testament to the film community that they have up there. It just never ceases to amaze me when I think about it. This small town like out in the middle of nowhere has one of the most thriving film communities that I've ever heard of.
And not to like put too much of a tease out there to our listeners, but there's something brewing in the horizon between Itmod and Alamo Winchester. Something exciting happening this summer, and I think next week we'll be able to announce it.
I'm so excited.
That was my weekend dork. I had a blast. And the print of that movie was gorgeous.
Yeah.
What is it? The AFG?
The AGFA.
The AGFA, they did a restoration on it, and I don't know if it was a 4K restoration or what, but that print was gorgeous. All the older Shaw Brothers films and Golden Harvest films, they did a lot of shooting on sound stages, and watching those movies now. As I was talking about the Practical Dragon, and having that, in the shot with the actor. Also, like, looking at these sets that they create for these movies that a lot of times are reused, but I don't know, like, there is just something charming about just the artistry in these sets, no matter how, like, dated they come across or may look. I just think it's a cool thing that there was a point in the time when, every Saturday for a lot of people, like this was the normal. You watch these movies and what you saw, the effects, the bad dubbing and all that other stuff, like that was like the normal. And I don't know, like there's just something charming about seeing that today when a lot of stuff 99% is shot on green screen. Even Marvel films are susceptible to like bad green screen shots, and I don't know. It's just something really charming about seeing the practical effects and the production set design of these films.
Well, Brad and I were just watching, because Brad's doing his rewatch of the Spielberg films.
Yeah.
And we were just rewatching Jurassic Park and those films, and just the opportunity, like like I can feel child Lisa being jealous of these actors getting to interact with these animatronic dinosaurs, like, and you really do feel the presence of the object, like they're big beautiful toys, or they're like real dinosaurs. So cool. And I feel like that's something like cinema has gotten away from. And I do think that hopefully the trend will come back around where there is this blending of these two amazing arts, the art of creating an object digitally and the art of creating an object physically.
Well, currently, luckily we have, the newer Star Wars films championing that approach, because, with The Force Awakens and also definitely with The Last Jedi, there were practical effects for, I would say, more than half of the creatures, if not all of them, that were in the film. And
even in Solo, those cantina scenes. So that mix of practical and digital, you feel that texture.
Yep. And L3, is it L3 or L7? It's L3, right?
L3.
L3, a practical effect. And she's very present in each scene, and that just complements the performance of that character, so that when at her demise, when everything that came before it, how well that was put together is also factoring into how we take in that scene and how that emotionally affects us. And then Donald Glover, his reaction to it is, adding to it. But it's just a combination of he has something to act off of, and I think a lot of that has to do with why we got that performance from him in that scene, because he had a L3 in his arms, and he had been acting opposite that character. So I'm grateful, and hopefully, like, you're right. Like, hopefully, more movies and more studios will lean towards implementing practical effects.
Agreed. But before we move on, Brian, like, what did you ultimately think about Solo?
Oh, I really enjoyed my experience watching the film. As it's kind of sat with me for the last week or so, I think all you guys are right. I mean, ultimately, I think it's going to be a film that's going to be forgettable. But I think I really enjoyed the performances by the cast, specifically Alden Ehrenreich and Donald Glover. And of course, the cinematography from Bradford Young I thought was impeccable.
I was surprised by your rating on Letterboxd.
I forgot what I even gave it. Was it 3?
No, you did not. You gave it 2.5.
Ooh, that's some cold shit.
2.5. Man, I gotta go. No, I think I gave it 3. I have to go back and check. I'm sure.
Almost positive, because I remember going like, all right, Brian thinks like Brad does. All right.
Yeah,
we learned today that Brian is his own man with his own opinions. Was that on the air? Was that an on the air?
It was on the air.
Oh, yeah. Brian is his own man with his own opinions, and he doesn't need to listen to us.
Yeah, but I want him to agree with me all the time.
We do most of the time. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not as upset as a lot of these kind of diehard Star Wars fans, and everybody's just talking about the divide of the fandom, and this movie is just kind of adding fuel to the flame, coming off of The Last Jedi. But I don't think this movie is that egregious of a film for people to get that upset about. But
I mean, I agree with that, and let it be known, Brian gave it 3 stars.
Brad, you were so fucking full of shit.
but again, those usually with those ratings from Letterboxd, those is like as soon as I come out of theater. A lot of times with most films, once you sit with a movie for a while, you start to think about it, your opinion changes about it. Like most recently, I feel that way about Ready Player One. I was so high coming off that movie out of theater. And granted, I've only seen it since that one viewing, but as I've kind of sat with that movie for a while, it's become a little forgettable for me as well.
Yeah.
It was interesting getting set up, and I guess we'll talk about this in our Week in Dork, but prepping for the Week in Dork and scrolling through the films that have come out this year, and kind of feeling how.
Oh, you mean for the Fistful Friday?
For Fistful Friday, feeling how all of my gut reaction to these titles has evolved since watching them in the theater.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice tease.
Why, thank you. I am an amateur professional podcaster.
All right, that's going to be it for my week in Dork.
Yes.
When we come back from the break, we're going to do our review cast for Upgrade.
Yes.
The new science fiction, action, horror thriller from Leigh Whannell, the writer of The Saw, and writer and director of the Insidious films. Also an actor. He performs in those films. Here he's jumping out there with his next film. So when we come back, we're going to talk about that.
Hey, this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
And we are back. How about that those jingles? You like that?
I'm loving the promos. I love having sponsors.
Yeah.
Makes us feel official.
Feels real.
Yep. And, just to reiterate what John and Liz said during the break, listen to their podcast. After Movie Diner and People I Think Are Cool are, that's appointment listening for me. And I'm not just saying that because I was the last guest on People I Think Are Cool. It's legit great, guys.
Well, what I love about People I Think Are Cool is when you listen to creative people talk and about doing their thing, it makes you want to do your thing. I find it tremendously inspiring. And Liz is a great interviewer. She really digs in there. Asks the important cues. She is great, and she's very pretty. Yeah, and she has a great sense of fashion, and she has a bunch of animals she keeps at her house that are adorable.
And you too, Jimmy. You're a great person, you're beautiful, and you have a sense of fashion too, Jimmy.
Yeah, but does he have a podcast that is sponsoring us? I think not.
No. Well, I just didn't want him to feel left out, but we were throwing Liz a lot of love. I got love for you, Jimmy. All right. Anyway, my most anticipated movie of the summer just came out, and we saw it, and we're here to talk about it. It is Upgrade, directed by Leigh Whannell and starring, what is that guy's name?
Logan Marshall-Green.
Logan Marshall-Green. As we do all the time, we're going to do the good, the bad, the ugly. So, Brian's starting off with you.
And we're going to spoil the hell out of it.
Yeah,
guys.
Yeah.
So stop what you're doing. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's worth watching. Then come back and give us a listen. Or if you just don't care about spoilers, give us a listen. Brian, you're good. Let's start off with you.
My good. I really enjoyed this film.
Stop. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You know what I probably do? Should I do like an explanation of the movie? No, because the people. Should I say?
Well, I've seen the movie already.
Synopsis?
I mean, I think a synopsis would be okay if you just read like the IMDb thing.
Okay, I'm going to do that.
I think that's probably a pretty good rule going forward. Just like doing a quick, this is what IMDb says, and let's go.
I think that you should write a short rap about it.
Oh, yeah, I also agree.
Then you should do a rap synopsis of every film.
Yeah, that's what you should do, Darren.
We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is this. I'm going to read, set in the near future, technology controls nearly all aspects of life. But when Gray, a self-identified technophobe, has his world turned upside down, his only hope for revenge is in an experimental computer chip implant called STEM.
That is a slightly more artful. I'm gonna do a separate podcast, my own podcast, just by myself that reviews IMDb synopses, because I find that to be more artful than the usual IMDb synopsis. Yeah, don't you think? It really gets you in there.
Maybe it was just how I was saying it.
You did say it very nicely. I am a victim of your dulcet tones.
Yeah, he threw a little sexy on it.
Yeah, he did. That's why we have him on the cast.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to bring the sexy.
All right. Speaking of sexy, Brian, you're good. Upgrade.
Oh wow, I'm flattered. Well, my good. I really enjoyed this film. Again, I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't even know about this film until Darren actually convinced me to do a trailer reaction to this film, and it immediately got on my radar to check this film out. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this movie. I like how it's kind of a hybrid of a lot of stuff that we've kind of seen before. Of course, this is an original story by Leigh Whannell, but it's not. It's still kind of familiar from a lot of stuff. It feels like he's kind of paying homage to a lot of the films from the 80s and 90s, films like Terminator and RoboCop and stuff like that. And I really like the world building that he was able to do, especially in the beginning of the film. That's one of the things I kind of took notice to in the beginning of the film, was the world building that he was doing by setting this movie kind of like it feels like a not so distant future, because the way he's able to kind of blend futuristic technology with some of our real world settings. When you see like I think one of the first shots that we see after he's working on his car in the beginning, you see his wife pull up in the car, and the technology that is kind of used with that car. It kind of reminded me, again, talking about throwbacks, it reminded me of Time Cop. So I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, and then you have the drones that kind of circle the city, surveying a lot of the crime that's going on in the city, and then the whole technology with STEM. So
yeah,
I thought
I think technology-wise, this film does a great job of kind of extrapolating the trends that we're going through today. This idea that technology is learning our behavior and adapting to us. Like we all say "Hey Siri" a couple of times a day.
Absolutely.
This idea that our technology is now observing us in the sense of STEM, learning our behaviors, and then adapting to us. And then with the drone technology, this idea that we want to take a back seat and kind of let the technology take over, because we somehow feel like the technology has now exceeded us in certain skills, and why surveil an area, do a beat as a cop if you can just send a drone. Yeah. So I agree that is a good.
Yeah, I thought, just like I said, building that world out and making it believable and bringing in all those different elements that really just kind of enhance the storytelling and enhance the story, I thought was just very well done by Leigh Whannell and everybody involved. Something else I really enjoyed was, of course, and we'll probably talk about this more, is Logan Marshall-Green. Just his performance, I thought, was just really good in this film. We talked about it as far as just what we saw in the trailer, as far as with that one scene when he goes to the guy's house with that first kill, or that first fight sequence, and how his body, when STEM takes over his body, his body is doing one thing, and yet his facial expressions is doing something completely different. And I can only imagine being on set while they're actually filming that scene and watching him as an actor perform that choreography and give that type of performance, and to be able to do that, to feel like two separate entities, is just remarkable. Just
so good.
Just alone in that sequence, and then the way he's able to just kind of play this character from throughout the arc of this film. I really bought into the relationship that he had with his wife, because this movie moves at a pretty brisk pace. I think it's only about an hour and a half long. So you don't really have a lot of time to really establish the relationship between him and his wife. And I thought like that first scene when she comes home and the scene in the kitchen and everything like that, I thought they had really good chemistry together. So it was really, at least for me, was able to kind of buy into that relationship and buy the connection between the two of them. And just to see what ultimately happens to her, and to see him deal with the grief of that, to see him start to kind of become obsessed with finding out, going through this revenge, and then also being able to have a lot of those comedic moments with Stem and, figuring out what the hell is going on with my body and all these different things. I thought he was able to play a great range of diversity as far as like with his emotion, and I just thought he did just a phenomenal job in this role.
It's easily his best performance since The Invitation. I've been waiting for this Logan Marshall-Green. We've seen him in Prometheus and Spider-Man Homecoming, but this and The Invitation show what this guy can do. He's not just a low-rent Tom Hardy.
I know. That's everybody's go-to description of this actor, and I really hope he breaks out of that, because you're right. I enjoyed him in The Invitation, and that's what because I totally forgot about him in Prometheus, which I think was before The Invitation, and so I really didn't pay a lot of attention to him in that role. But The Invitation was really what put me on notice for him as an actor. And I really enjoyed him in this. And I hope that this movie kind of catapults him into the next level as far as getting more work for him and seeing him in more high-profile roles. But there's a lot I really liked about this film, but I'll kind of pass it along to you guys. But yeah, this was I really enjoyed those two aspects of this story.
Okay, wife Dork.
Yes. Brian did cover a lot of my goods. I think Logan Marshall-Green's performance, just in terms of the physical comedy, like I think he's doing some like Chaplin level shit, like with the separating the facial expression versus the physical violence, and to me like it helps you get lost in the story, like really feel Stem's presence, even though it's a character you don't see, you only hear. So fascinating. I also really like the story with his mother, particularly how like just the emotional devastation of becoming an invalid and caring for someone whose needs are so extraordinary.
That shot where Logan Marshall-Green breaks down in his mom's arms is devastating.
It's devastating.
Yeah.
And the mother is just trying to be like, the way they did the IMDb page. I would love to give this actress credit, but they put the actor list in alphabetical order, so it's hard to figure out who's who. So if you could poke around and figure that out for me, because I want to give her credit. But like the way she's trying to be strong for her son when when he's dealing with so much loss, the loss of his wife.
She's not listed on IMDb.
Dang.
What the fuck? That's so cold. She is so amazing in this film. And then when she finds out about Stem and how he is now able to stand and walk and he's clearly involved in something freaking nefarious, that transformation of her going like, what do I do? And how, like, to me, it's like one of those performances that could have easily been glossed over, but it's so essential to giving Gray Trace, Logan Marshall-Green's character, this context, like familial context. Yeah. I also really enjoyed Betty Gabriel's performance as Cortez.
Yeah.
We saw her in Get Out. And she played the grandmother, I suppose. But in this film, she plays the cop, and she does a lot of kind of double dealing where she is trying to not like she's on to Gray Trace. She knows that he is a quadriplegic, but somehow still involved in these murders. And the scene in the garage where Gray Trace is listening to Stem, and Stem is kind of telling him, like, oh, Cortez has looked at your shoe, like they've clearly got a print, like that. To see her kind of investigate while not acting like she's investigating. I don't know how to describe it, but I really enjoyed her performance. And I love, like, because I loved her so much in Get Out, I'm so happy to see her in other stuff. And she's popping up in a ton of projects coming up.
She's in Westworld this season too, as well.
Yes. And so what has she got going on? She's got I don't know. I've poked IMDb too much.
Lots of stuff.
Be
on the lookout.
Yes. Because I feel like I just saw her in a trailer. I don't know. I haven't. Brad shaking his head no. I'm just imagining her in places. I'm giving her a lot of imaginary work in my head, and she deserves it. That's my good.
All right. What about you, B?
I would echo everything that Brian and Lisa said. The only thing I would like to add is this whole concept of STEM and Gray, right? His name's Gray. That it works as a buddy cop movie, right?
Yeah, it does.
When I was watching it, the film that immediately popped into my head is Heart Condition with Denzel Washington and Bob Hoskins, where Washington plays a ghost that's tied to Bob Hoskins after he has a heart transplant. And like, I love this idea of a buddy relationship that the outside world is not aware of, and the comedy that ensues from that. And I think Leigh Whannell, in particular, the first half of this film certainly nails the excitement and the joy of their relationship.
Yeah.
And, the violence. I love the violence.
Oh, man, so
Leigh
good.
Whannell is a horror guy. He's the Saw guy, and he brings that sensibility to this film. And I know Darren was probably losing his mind seeing all those heads blow up.
Well, one thing that really gets me in film is breaking bones.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of good snaps in this that make my skin crawl.
Yeah,
Yes.
that always gets me too.
So I certainly appreciated that. And to Lisa's point and Brian's point, watching Logan Marshall-Green look away as Stem takes over and slices off a dude's face is delicious.
It's freaking magical. Like, he's doing a magic trick. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really great. So yeah, I loved all these aspects of the movie. And really it's like the first half of Upgrade, I am on cloud 9.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I agree with everything that everyone has said so far. I would just add that another good is some interesting camera techniques that Leigh Whannell employs in the film to, I think, just accentuate the aspect of something not being totally in control or the awkwardness of it. And so, it's in the trailer. And there's several times in the film where Gray was laying supine on his back, and then once Stem is activated, he just springs up from the floor like Dracula out of a coffin. But the camera rotates. The camera rotates off its ear up with him, and he does some other things like that, and behind the back shots where the camera's attached to
attached to him. So when he moves, he's always still in the middle of the frame, but just the environment moves around him, like giving you this weird feeling. Like I just enjoyed all of that. Like I was just giddy with delight, like watching all these different camera techniques just help just add more to the world and the character, and just helping him help sell that this man is different because of this thing that's in his neck. So like I appreciate it. And
I also I'm sorry, go ahead.
The villain, the Weasley looking dude with the mustache, I enjoyed him too. But there's not a lot of action in this movie. There's only
a lot of detective work.
Yeah,
there's like a lot of detective work going on.
Which those scenes I also enjoyed too. I would say, when the movie first started, I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, this is fine, this is cool. There's some performances, there's some lines or whatever that I had issue with earlier, but I'm not going to talk about that now. But the moment Stem made himself known to Gray, I just fell in love with the movie. Like at that point, once he was introduced, and just to see them, they're just two. They are actually two separate characters, and you feel that, you buy that, and I just found that delightful. Just as an audience member, knowing that there's nothing else. This guy is just doing, this is a physical performance, and he's acting possibly into someone off camera, but he's selling the shit out of it and making me believe that he's not in control at times. And like I just found that freaking great. And I like the throwback feel to, like Brian, what you were talking about, like the world building and having a balance between a current now look mixed with futuristic elements, be it the futuristic drones or the progression of automated cars. And for me, like that felt like a direct nod to RoboCop and that old Detroit. And old Detroit, like you had like some worn down parts of it, but then you had some futuristic buildings, and then you had some old rickety cars, but then you had like the SUX, which was like this supposed to be like futured out car, to give you an idea that this is in the future. So RoboCop isn't the only thing that's supposed to be futuristic about this film. Like, so I feel like Leigh Whannell kind of taps into that with the world building, and I think some of it also comes out of necessity in that, like, it wasn't like a huge budget for this film. So how do you on a very limited budget establish that this is a future, this is a such high concepts, you know what I mean, like, how do we fake it, we have these high concepts that we're talking about, and we're based in, like, how do we present that with so little money? And I felt like they did a decent job. And like I said, even when certain areas or certain scenes kind of were lit to where it looked cheap or whatever, for me it just felt like, well, it looks like those movies from the 90s,
right?
So I enjoyed that aspect of it. Logan Marshall-Green, like his performance, the again, that Weasley bad guy with the mustache, the other guy with the gun in his hand that got his head blown off, like all the violence was great, and it was fun watching it with the audience, just hearing their reactions to it, and everyone being in unison, and people, because I was in a theater with at least half of the people were just wandered into it. Like, they didn't know anything about it. They didn't know it was going to be as brutal as it was. So when that first kid, Pez head kill happens, like, it shocked the entire audience, and it was so great. And they're like, "Whoa, wait, okay, is this what we're doing in this movie?" Okay, so that was fun too. I enjoyed it. This is a movie that would kill, like, once, if it becomes, it starts playing at like midnight crowds, or just the genre. If you're a genre fan, this movie would play great to that type of audience. So yeah.
I love the beginning too, when the like how you introduce the studio logo and the production logos, like, and you hear the instead of you actually like seeing it, you hear the voice of STEM saying, like, you know, this is an STX or whatever it was, and then it's like, and it says upgrade, and I was like right then I was all in. Like, it just brings you into the story. You're like, okay, that's different. And so I thought that was really cool the way they started the film out that way.
Yeah, that was dope. All right, the bad. All right, Brian, what was not so good?
Not so good for me. Really, I think it comes down to a lot of the villains and the antagonists of the film. Like the guys that were that basically killed his wife. We don't really learn a lot about them, and I didn't really. I don't know. I guess I don't want to say the casting of it, but it's just, to me, it just didn't really I didn't really feel the threat from those type of characters as far as the characters I felt like the film was trying to present them as. Also, I guess goodness, I don't know the character's name, but the guy from the company
Aaron,
yeah. Who invented STEM, the low rent Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
He I didn't really, I don't want to say buy into his character, but I guess the portrayal, I guess him as an actor, I guess he just felt kind of young for the type of character that he was playing. And it kind of made it a little bit more difficult for me to kind of buy into that whole aspect as far as like him being like, you know, the CEO
I think they were trying to get like a Zuckerberg vibe, where it's just like these young geniuses who have this tremendous understanding of technology but don't quite grasp the consequences of it, which I feel like is like a trend in films, having these like young
which I'm not necessarily on board.
characters.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily on board with that all the way. I mean, I think it definitely can work if it fits the story. I don't think here it necessarily fit the story because it didn't really make a difference on the impact of the character, whether he was a young Zuckerberg type or if he was an older character as well. I think it could have worked either way, but unfortunately, I don't think his character
I would
really.
argue with that. Maybe, like, don't you think that could explain why he was able to be bullied, if you will, by STEM?
Yeah, I guess, if you look at it from that angle, as far as with STEM being able to kind of control or manipulate the whole situation, I guess that does make sense, maybe to cast him a bit younger. Than I guess it was just maybe more so his performance. But that character for me just really didn't work as well for me. I think mostly for me that I mean, again, this might be going more towards the good. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I did like the ending as far as like how this movie really kind of sets it up as kind of like this revenge film, but it kind of pulls the rug under you and you realize that STEM is kind of orchestrating this whole thing to really kind of become more in tune or to take over Gray's body. So that ending, I don't want to say it was predictable but it was shocking to me to kind of see that, because I was on board for this revenge story, and to see that kind of twist at the end, I was like, oh, okay. It's, for some people it may not work, but it definitely did kind of work for me. But I also liked when you see that flash of him with his wife, and when he wakes up and he says to himself like, no, that's not a dream. And then when we see that kind of come back at the end, as far as like STEM saying, he's trying to break his mind to really be able to kind of take over his body. But I like those aspects of it. But Betty Gabriel, I loved her performance. Her character just felt like it was a bit by numbers to me, a little bit. They didn't really give her a lot to do. Although I love her as an actress, I thought she was great in Get Out. I thought she did great with what she was given. I was still able to kind of connect with her in that final moment. because I just like her presence so much that when she does get killed, I still had like an emotional connection to that. But I think they really could have played that up a little bit more.
I think they were too focused on her kind of being like the anti-technology person, because we already had one of those people in our main character in Gray Trace. So like she was kind of echoing a lot of those same things. I think it would have been more interesting if she worked in collaboration with the technology. Yeah. She would have been a little bit more of a mediator between the technology and the real world.
Yeah, making her an antagonist was no good.
Yeah. Her character just felt way too procedural to me, that I just wanted to get a little bit more from her, only because I just like her presence on screen. I definitely wanted to see more of her. That could have been due to the runtime. Maybe they just didn't have enough economy of time to really give her what she needed. But
I just feel like they didn't have a good angle on her.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. But yeah, I think that all in all really was the stuff that really just kind of was the bad. It was just more so the villains and the antagonists of the film just not really being fleshed out, or not really being able to buy in the portrayal of those characters.
All right, wife Dork.
For my bad, I also have an issue with the villains, but it's not so much with their performances, but with their styling and their general look.
Yeah.
I wish I was the type of person to come up with examples. That's just not how my brain works. But I feel this trend of like ironic nerd villains who are like, they're like these kind of skinny dudes with the coiffed do and like the perfect mustache, and like somehow they're like they don't look like the typical burly villain, and so somehow it's supposed to make them more menacing. But now, like, to me it's just like I don't understand why the cast of Napoleon Dynamite is now so fucking angry and all becoming assassins.
I think that's the angle I was trying to go at with that too as well. So it was just like
it's like it's starting to become a cliche at this point, where it's just like where it's like the dweebs are out and they're out for blood. Like I just they're like I've buttoned my my cowboy cut shirt all the way to the top, and now I'm going to draw blood. Like I don't know, to me I'm finding it a little bit corny at this point. I also thought that the movie started to drag a little bit in the middle when we got a little bogged down with a little bit more of the trying to like when it was time to hack STEM, and then and then like to me I found that whole middle section just got a little bit long for me, and then I immediately missed having Gray Trace work with STEM. To me, like that was like the funny like collaboration was what made the thing fun. And then also I saw the ending coming, and I was a little bit disappointed. Like, I was just like, oh no, STEM's the bad guy. And then, like, when that came to pass, I was, like, a little disappointed. I did find the flashbacks to the wife, and then, like, the ultimate where, like, Gray Trace is then locked off in a place in his brain where he's going to live with his wife in the hospital. Like, I found that kind of beautiful. Wake up and it's all a dream, but it's not a dream. I found that kind of beautiful, but to me, I just I was a little bit disappointed by that ending. Just because I did find it very, very predictable. Okay. And then also I thought that this is my last one, but I thought the scene with the hacker, I thought the gender joke was in poor taste. Somebody who having a transgender or a non-binary person be so aggressive about it. I thought was, like going like, well, don't even ask about my gender. Like, non-binary people want to be asked about their gender. They want to be asked about their pronouns. And I think that it was that I felt like the non-binary thing was being used as a punchline, like the way like gay was used as a punchline in the 90s. To me, I just thought it was in poor taste. And to me, script-wise, it made Leigh Whannell seem a little old. Like it was an old person joke to make. So that's it for my bad.
All right, B.
For me, the movie takes a nosedive about halfway through, and that happens when the revelations start coming of who is orchestrating these events. And the moment the film makes STEM the bad guy, I feel like it betrays the entertainment value of that buddy cop movie we had. What I wanted is STEM and Gray, kicking ass commando style, the film escalating to an absurd level of action violence. And I didn't care if, I don't care about the motivations of the bad guys. I just wanted a straight, brutal action horror sci-fi thriller. And I just felt like the movie was being too cute, or it thought it was being too, very clever. And as Lisa's point of view is like, I knew, it tips its hand about halfway through that STEM's going to be the one orchestrating all of this. And I just found that to be a bummer based on how much fun I was having in the old Bones sequence and that first guy's, house. So yeah, I was really frustrated by that turn.
All right. Before I get into my bad, I would like to mention I also forgot, as far as one of my good, I liked the ending a lot. I wasn't expecting. I didn't get it at the midway point of the movie. I was surprised.
Yeah, I missed it too.
I don't know if I wasn't paying attention or what, but yeah. I thought that when it's revealed, it's the young kid, I was like, okay, that's obvious, and I was kind of like disappointed. I was like, man, well, that's kind of obvious. That I kind of expected. So when the turn happens, I'm like, oh shit, okay, so it wasn't what I expected. So I enjoyed it for that, and I appreciate it.
To me, what made it made it clear that it was STEM was so self-preservational. Like it just got to the point where STEM didn't really, it became clear that STEM didn't really care that much about Trace. Like he just cared about continuing to survive.
And then that point where he gets rebooted and he gains control.
Right, of course.
And, they start to have a push and pull relationship.
Right.
I just found all that very frustrating. Because again, I was having this is like a 90s B movie, kicking ass film, and then it became,
Brad just created
movie.
His own narrative in his head and cheated himself out of having a good time.
And maybe that's unfair, but I just thought that ending was totally unsatisfying.
But Darren liked it, so it was clearly
well.
satisfying.
And as we talked about early on in this podcast, Darren's allowed to have his opinion.
No, that's Brian. Brian.
That was me. That was me.
Darren's got to have my opinion.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry. But yeah, I dug all that. Now, as far as my bad, the performances in the first act, but those scenes between him and his wife, I don't know, I don't know. They came off kind of corny to me. I understand what they were doing. I understand what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I understand what they're going for. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna give it a pass. I'm not gonna hold it against the movie. But then again, like I said, my good, once STEM got introduced, I didn't give a shit about anything else. I was like, man, this is great. But as far as the bad, so it's just that, that performance. I would say there was a pacing issue, and for me, I don't know, I can't remember specifically where I started to feel it, But I do remember, like, once I felt it, it became noticeable, I was like, oh man, this is feeling like it's kind of long. Then, like, something happened and it just picked up and it kept going. And so, and also, I guess I don't know where I stand on the kid, his performance, and his character. I do understand what they were going for, but I don't know how satisfied I am with it as far as, just how the performance in the character comes across. I don't know, like I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. I just can't put my finger on it. There was just something there that I can't say I liked it. But I mean,
what was that movie about it was about the water cure. It
Cure
was
for Wellness.
The Cure for Wellness. He reminded me of that dude from The Cure for Wellness.
Dane DeHaan.
Oh,
a little bit.
He was getting a little DeHaan-y.
Yeah. Again, Leonardo DiCaprio. It's got that Leo thing going.
The 90s Leo thing. It's like a very specific DiCaprio.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, like, going to your point about pacing, Darren, I think for me, because I was trying to pinpoint, because I felt it too in the middle of the film, and I know you mentioned that too, Brad. I think it was when the Leo dude was trying to shut down STEM.
Right.
That whole back and forth with that. I think that's where it kind of got bogged down for me, because it felt like they were kind of getting away from the
having fun.
Well, yeah, exactly. Having fun and dealing with the revenge factor, where you kind of go off on this other thing. It was like, okay, I'm gonna try to shut down STEM. It becomes this race against the clock, and I think it kind of got bogged down there. But then, like you say, after STEM comes back, it kind of picks up again once the villains come in and he does those other two kills, and we get into the end of the third act. But yeah, I think that's probably where it starts to kind of, the pacing becomes an issue.
Yeah. And my last bad is I wish I had not watched the Red Band trailer, because the Red Band trailer basically has every friggin', like, all the cool shit that happens in the film. Like, it's in that trailer. And I love the audience's reaction that didn't know that these things were coming. And I wish I could have experienced that as well. Because, like, that initial kill, like, that knife in the mouth, like, if I had not known about that and I was in the theater and I saw that, because the movie up to that point, it hasn't been that graphic as that, and so I could just see it just shocked the shit out of everyone in that audience. So I just wish I hadn't seen. The bad is, like, that Red Band trailer really has all the highlight moments in the movie, and yeah, I messed around and watched it. God damn it.
I second that emotion, and to me it highlighted all of the other parts of the movie that did not have that graphic action.
Yeah. And so, that's really not, I don't even think that's really not a fault of the movie, because, like, even if I had not seen the trailer and I watched the movie, the next time I watch it, I'm going to know these things, so those things still have to be able to play well with me, and so I think it will. But yeah, I just wish that my initial viewing of all that carnage was in the theaters, because it was just tickling me, like, hearing the people be shocked by these acts of violence. So yeah, that's gonna do it for my bad. The ugly, Brian.
Not too much ugly, I guess. I mean, I guess when we talk about ugly, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing or a good thing, just indifferent. But I guess for me, I would say the violence. Yeah. And the violence was, again, like you said, Brad, it's not a lot. But I like how it was very quick and abrupt. Because I think that also plays into the fact of, STEM taking over his body and trying to get these kills done in a quick manner. But I thought, again, just for that shock value, especially when you see that first kill with the mouth, with the knife through the skull, or not the skull, but his face. That's definitely a shock value that's going to affect the audience. And then, of course, the guy with the gun hand, and where he breaks his arm and shoots his head off, and a lot of those different moments I thought really worked really well, and the violence and the way he was, like you said, Leigh Whannell, coming from that school of horror, the way he's able to kind of shoot and do a lot of those different kills, I thought was really, really cool, and did it in a really quote unquote ugly way.
All right, Lisa.
Yes. For my ugly, I want to focus on some of the gross out stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, Darren, there were 2 vomit scenes. Darren was super sweet to text me so that I could close my eyes for all of those emetophobia triggering scenes, 2 scenes. And so I appreciated that. So that didn't bother me. I found a lot of the seeing the fiber cables in flesh was really gross. I thought that the scene where they're actually implanting the little stem bot, little stem bug, was really nasty and wonderful to watch. But to me, what I find very ugly is that whenever I watch a movie where I see a couple that's as happy as Brad and I, the wife has got to die. Every single time I'm like, wow, this is really cute, together, married couple. Oh no, she's going to become motivational real soon. But I love revenge. That's not a complaint. I love revenge films. If a spouse has to die, I totally get it. But maybe we should have some happy couples where somebody lives.
Yay.
Yeah. That's it. That's my ugly.
All right, B.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily have an ugly separate from what Brian and Lisa have said. I'm aligned with them on both of those points.
Okay. For my ugly, I would have to say it is the kill with the guy in the what's the bar, the Bones? What's the bone place?
Oh yeah, Old Bones.
Old Bones, yeah, that guy's kill. I hate knife violence. I can take everything else, but just when people are getting cut, just the thought of that, oh man, it just makes me uneasy. So I just found that, because I love the way when Gray is on top of this guy that he has just fought with. He has the best of him, and he's on top of him. So the camera's shooting from the low angle, looking up at Gray, and Stem takes over, and it stays on his face while Stem is doing God knows what to this dude that's laying on the ground, and Gray's reaction to it, mixed with your own imagination, you have to imagine what it is that he's seeing that makes him have that reaction, and your imagination is gonna freak you out worse than anything else, because you know what you're afraid of, you know what bothers you or turns you off. So just at that moment, I'm just oh man, he just cut this dude all up. Did he cut his whole face off? Did he take his nose off? Because it sounds like he's cutting his ear off. I don't know what the hell is going on. So that is my ugly. Not even what you see once it's revealed, once the camera shows his face. But I just mean just what I was thinking, and coupled with Gray's reaction.
That's the brilliance of that scene and just the filmmaking of it, because you're anticipating that cut back to his face, because with his performance as far as his reaction and the sound effects, and like you say, what you're thinking about in your own mind, it's when the camera's on him, they're going to cut back, and you're just waiting for that cut back to see what his face looks like. And you're right. That's just the brilliance of that scene and that edit.
I kind of wish they didn't show it, because
I know what you mean, because it's never going to live up to what you're thinking in your own head.
I was like, oh man, I screwed that dude's face up way worse in my head. All right, so final thoughts on Upgrade?
I love the first half.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I enjoyed it through and through, and I was not expecting the outcome of the ending, for me personally.
If there's a sequel and this story continues, I might change my tune on the first film. But as it stands, I think ultimately I was disappointed.
I dug it. Then that ending kind of reminds me, because this movie takes influence from movies from the 90s, but also movies like from the 80s and even earlier. Like, the ending to me reminds me, it has that same feeling like at the end of Scanners, when friggin' the good guy is just, you know, balled up, just burning hunk of flesh like in the corner of his office, and Michael Ironside is like victorious at the end of the film. Like, you're like, whoa, wait a minute, like, that's not supposed to happen. Like, you know, the good guy is supposed to win. Like, and that's how I was feeling, like, with everything that Gray went through, like losing his wife and then, you know, becoming quadriplegic, and now, you know, now he's lost everything, but because of all the stuff that he went through, he's okay with being in his own little sunken place or whatever. Like, he's okay, like, just staying in the dream. And so, like, I don't know, there's something haunting about that. You know, it's bittersweet, I guess, because like Lisa was saying, like, oh yeah, okay, I guess he's happy. That's what he wants. So I guess that's cool, but just the principle of now what has happened, there was this sinister microchip that had plans to take over this dude's body, whether he wanted it to happen or not. And he got away with the shit. It was just so happened that the dude was like cool with it in the end. So I don't know, like that. I thought that was really cool. And so yeah, I dug it.
Yeah.
Let us know what you thought, listeners. You can hit us up at ItModcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Brian, what do you got coming up this week? You looking forward to Ocean's 8?
Yeah, man. Ocean's 8. I've been, you know, they've been coming out with some reviews. I know they've had some critic screenings, so the reviews have been pretty good. But I'm also looking for Hotel Artemis. Hopefully, I can try to check that out. I mean, I haven't seen it playing anywhere around us as of right now, but hopefully, as we get closer to.
Yeah, we have Monday night at the Alamo Drafthouse. There's an advanced screening of it.
Yes. Tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Oh shit. Okay. Huh.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to see if I can catch that. Hopefully.
All right. Wife.
Oh.
Sorry. What else?
Oh no. Never mind. I'll
you sure?
I'll let you guys finish.
You sure? All right, Kanye. You can be found at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. Wife Dork. What are you looking forward to this week?
Finally, the documentary "Won't You Be My Neighbor" about Fred Rogers comes out on Saturday, June 9th at the ArcLight in Bethesda or the AMC Shirlington 7. And this was one of my most anticipated films of the summer. I could not be more excited.
All right. I was wondering when that movie was coming out. Okay.
I've just been asking Brad every week, like, does the movie come out now? Is it now? I'm like a kid before Christmas.
Yeah, I'm excited. I got a feeling it's going to make me cry.
It's currently got a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, an 8.4 on IMDb, and a 4.5 on IndieWire. I generally don't pay attention to that shit unless it agrees with me, and I think it will. I'm really looking forward to knowing more about this hero of mine.
Same. All right. You can find her at Baked Dork on Twitter and also at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter, as well as Instagram and Letterboxd. Brad Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Tap. But
what is he looking forward to? What's Mouth Dork looking forward to?
That was my next question.
Oh, you're flipping the script.
I did. I just wanted to be spontaneous.
Oh, this is not allowed.
Yeah, Lisa won't let that happen. Trust me. As we've been doing this podcast, I've been communicating with author Joe Lansdale on Twitter. We've been going back and forth. And at 8:30 tonight, I'm going to interview him because he is finally getting his novel, The Big Blow, adapted by Ridley Scott, producing for Scott Free. And who's directing? Who's the guy directing the movie? It's that Sundance kid, something Green. Anyway, that film's coming to the big screen. Joe Lansdale saw a news article I wrote about it, and he was like, "You got some facts wrong, kid." Uh-oh. And I was like, "I'm sorry." And then he straightened me out, and I asked him for a quick 30 minutes, and he's going to do that. We're going to talk about that. Maybe I'll slip in some Bubba Hotep questions.
Ew.
All right. I am Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. And I am also looking forward to Ocean's 8 and Hotel Artemis.
And Hereditary. That comes out this weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it when there's like more than 2 movies that's coming out in one weekend. So
It's been a while.
Yes. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this weekend, basically. So that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Be on the lookout for that interview, and also be on the lookout for. Wait, no, there's another interview, Brad. That I gotta put
Teresa
out, right?
Bennett.
Yeah, we got an interview with Teresa Bennett, the director of Social Animals.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That Lisa and Billy did.
Yes.
And then at the end of the week, we've got our fistful of the year so far. The best movies of the year so far.
Yep. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you all for listening. And until next time.